Hey guys, Noel Plum has made a video agreeing with the Free Thought Blogs and Atheism Plus folks about the so-called inappropriate appointment of Justin Vacula by the SCA. He doesn't agree with the methods of Free Thought Blogs, Atheism Plus people, i.e. a petition, and he doesn't agree necessarily with the reasoning, but he does agree that it was a bad appointment, strategically. First, let me say that I tend to enjoy Noel Plum's videos, and although I disagree with him on a number of things, he's well-spoken and seems to be a rational person. He does, however, seem to take the same approach as some other YouTubers of kind of sitting on the fence as much as possible. He seems to try very hard to not take sides in a debate, especially within the atheist community. Consider his new video. I'll let him give a synopsis in his own words. Now, I've sped this up a little bit because it's a little bit long. I've cut out a tiny bit as well. I don't want to strawman Mr. Noel Plum, so I've tried to keep it as much in context as possible. It required a large piece of footage, so I've cut it down. It's a little over a minute long, I think.
But the more that I've thought about this Justin Vacula appointment, the more that my position has altered. In fact, this might come as a surprise to some people, and I don't actually champion his appointment. I actually think that it was a strategically wrong thing to do, but I do think that Justin Vacula was a bad appointment, and that's aside from whether what he's done is acceptable or unacceptable. Let me try and explain why I think that's the case. As somebody who's an outsider looking in on this, I'm not American, I'm not an activist, I'm not involved in any kind of socio-political movements, political movements, or philosophical movements of any sort. What I can see here is that a huge division, a huge split has occurred, and not necessarily along the line. Some people were perhaps driving for a split, were happy to have a split, but the split that they've seen, the people that they've tried to shed off, has taken a great deal of other people, perhaps more worthy people, perhaps more likeable people with them. And that's got to present a problem here, I think. And this seems to run very, very deep. It seems to me that when you have a situation like that, if you want to employ somebody to a representative position, you do not want to, for pragmatic reasons, regardless of whether they've actually done anything wrong themselves or not, at that point in time you do not want to employ someone who is going to polarise and is going to piss some people off and make some people less likely to get on board. I think that applies, clearly that applies to Justin Vacula. It would also apply if they'd employed Ophelia Benson or if they'd employed P.Z. Myers or Rebecca Watson to do the same kind of role. Anybody who's involved in these discussions who is polarising and who some people really detest for one reason or another, they are not a good person to have in that role. There are usually plenty of people around who have sat on the fence, who have taken a middle ground and perhaps got some shit from it from both sides for doing so. They are better appointments if what you want to do ultimately is to heal the rift. And let me say, looking at this from outside, this is a rift that has to be healed here.
In other words, there's a big rift and we shouldn't champion or appoint anyone on either side of it. We should only appoint fence-sitters. I wonder, Mr. Noel Plum, should we also not appoint people who speak out against theism? What about if they've spoken out against racism? There's people on both sides of that debate. This is a fallacy I really wouldn't expect from Noel Plum. There aren't always two sides to every issue, and we don't always have to try to appease everyone. I do not agree with your statement that many significant figures in the skeptic/atheist community are on both sides. The only two people I ever respected who have come out in full support of Atheism Plus and Free Thought Blogs is Christina Rad and Matt Dillahunty. That's two people that I can think of. It's a very unpopular movement within the community. Have you been paying attention? The vast majority of the people I consider, quote, significant personalities in the so-called community are very firmly on the outside. I don't think this rift needs to be healed. This group has just become another irrational group that should be opposed at every opportunity, just like theism in this community. Why do we need to be any more accommodating to this group? Why do we need to placate a group of people that so many of us strongly disagree with? Well, the answer is we don't, and I don't see any rational arguments that I accept in your video. I disagree that the so-called rift needs to be healed. I disagree that we need to tiptoe around Atheism Plus and Free Thought Blogs or compromise with them. I disagree that there are two sides to this argument. I disagree. The community has been placating these feminists for years, specifically the feminists on Free Thought Blogs. And all it has done is increase the feminist anger and level of perceived injustice. We've given miles and they've taken light years. Consider how much effort that has gone into creating equality at conferences. Consider that many conferences now are strongly encouraged to have 50% or more of the speakers be female. Consider that the population of these events has lately become primarily female, or almost equal across the board, between men and women. Now consider that polls show that men in the UK, the US, and everywhere else tend to make up the majority of the so-called atheist population. Women are more likely to be religious than men. This means most atheists are men. So, why do we think that 50% male and female population at conferences and in speaking positions is equality? These are the types of things we've been doing as a community, and it has bred a new breed of feminists. Now they're attacking people's reputations and livelihoods. What if we all decided that you were right? What if we denied positions of authority to those who spoke out against what they consider to be irrational, damaging, and hateful behavior? Would people be less willing to speak out for fear of damaging their career or personal reputation? In short, do you think speaking out against a group you disagree with should seal the end of your career in the community? What does this say about the people in the community? Let's all remember the facts here. Atheism Plus was created to divide people who believed in a certain brand of social justice and feminism from the people who don't. It's done that. They've made their bed. I won't lay in it, and you shouldn't either. Thanks for listening.